Okay, MLA is something that students have struggled with ever since I've been a teacher, and really it's not that tricky, it's not that hard. If you know how to follow directions, all MLA is a format for how you format your essays so that they're really readable, and that they give credit where credit is due. And so, in the actual body of your essay, where you write your paragraphs, your thesis, etc., that you use in-text citations, which we've already gone over, to briefly tell the reader who the author is and what the article was called. However, that's usually not enough information to tell the reader where to find the information if he or she wants to do further research. And so that's where the MLA Works Cited comes in. All it is letting people know where you found your sources so that they can find them too, and it helps to avoid plagiarism. Okay, so if you ever need help with Works Cited or MLA format in general, I highly recommend going to the OWL at Purdue. So if you go into our Canvas class, you can actually go to the important year-long resources, and I have all the links there. So if you need to figure out how to use MLA or Works Cited, just go right there and you will find everything that you need. I know many of you guys will probably go to easybib.com to cite your sources first, and hey, I get it. It's easy. However, EasyBib makes mistakes. So if you're going to do EasyBib, you still need to go to the OWL at Purdue to make sure that EasyBib didn't make a mistake. I would say 90% of the time I have students make mistakes with EasyBib, and technically that's plagiarism. So all you have to do is know how to follow directions, and it's actually faster to do it on your own once you know the technique. So in order to do the works cited, you can see right here, this is from easybibs.com. They have, or not EasyBib, excuse me, it's from the OWL at Purdue, and it's their sample essay. And so you can see exactly how Works Cited is formatted. Works Cited is centered at the top of the page. Everything is double spaced, but there are no additional spaces between. So it's just double spaced. So if you were to take away the double spacing, it would look completely single spaced. Okay, you also need to use hanging indentations. So these are the opposite of how we normally indent a paragraph. We do hanging indentations so we can quickly glance down and see exactly who's the author, and it's alphabetical. It's really important to alphabetize, and you just have to copy and paste. Now, since you guys have iPads, Google Docs can't do a hanging indentation for you. So if you don't have a desktop computer, or if you don't know how to use Pages to actually get the formatting for you, please send me an email and say, hey, I've attached my essay, can you do the hanging indentations for me? And I will, okay? I will try to make a video on how to use Pages on the iPad as well, because you can save that as a .doc or .docs, and then you can upload that to Canvas and I can read it and use turnitin.com with it. Okay, so you can see it's alphabetized. Now you might wonder, why is an inconvenient truth here when clearly that's an A? And that's because since this is just an article, we don't need to worry about it. It's like it doesn't exist, and so it starts with the I. Okay, and it's also really important to pay attention to the punctuation. Okay, where there's punctuation, what is italicized, how you do the date. Okay, so we're going to go through that in this presentation, but if you're ever wondering, you can just look at this sample Works Cited as a guide, and it can help you get an idea of what it should look like. Okay, so in general, the way you cite things is you put the author's name, last name, comma, first name, capitalized with a period. Then the small title. What do I mean by small title? I mean the title of an article, the title of a web page, the title of a chapter. If it's a book, it's the title of the book. Okay? If it is part of a magazine, a newspaper, a CD, or a record album, since you guys don't have CDs anymore, then you would put the full title here. Okay? So if you're doing like chapter 9 from Pride and Prejudice, that would go here, and Pride and Prejudice would go here. The title of the organization should be italicized. Then you have a comma after that. If there's other contributors like other authors or a translator, you usually put them here. If you don't have it, you just leave it out. Same with the version and the number, okay? For a book, you would include the publisher, comma, and the publication date. I would include the original publication date, okay? Because I know it's complicated when there's multiple editions of books, but we'll stick with the original publication date. When in doubt, you can take a quick picture of the copyright page and send it to me, and I can help you with this. I'm your teacher. My goal is to help you. And so if you have a question or you want to give it a shot, and then have me check it over, okay? How to cite a book. It's really easy. Author last name, comma, first name, period. Title of the book italicized, period. Publisher, comma, publication date. Okay, if you have more than one author, the first author's name goes in that order. The second author's name goes first name, comma, or first name, last name, period, no comma. Okay. If you have a translated book, then you have translated by. Okay. And if you have an edition, after the title, you include third edition, and the edition is shortened to ed, period, then there's a comma. Okay, this presentation as a PowerPoint or as a Google slide is also attached to our Canvas page. So if you need this information and you don't want to listen to this video again, you can just go directly to this page. I tried to make it as easy as possible. Okay, so one practice is this is what a copyright page looks like. Okay, so you can see the year it was published, the publisher, okay, other information. You can see where it was published, but we don't need that information anymore. So I just copied it here. Okay, so this is the original book, or this is Pride and Prejudice, excuse me. And then this is Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, which is pretty fun. Okay, let's see. So I don't give you the answers on this, but I will go ahead and tell you. It's Austen, comma, Jane, period, Pride and Prejudice, period, Penguin Group, comma, 1813, period. I gave you the London because years ago it was common to include the place of publication, but they stopped doing that, and that's because with many editions of books, they're published in multiple cities simultaneously, so it's hard to know which one it was actually published in. Okay. With this one, it's Austen, comma, Jane, and Seth Graham Smith, period, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, period, and then you have Quirk Productions, comma, Inc., period, comma, 2009. Okay, an online magazine or hard copy. Okay, so if it is a magazine or a newspaper that is online and you know that they print them out and send them to people, you actually don't need the web address. You can cite it as if you had the hard copy in your hand. Okay, in a nutshell, it's the author or authors with the title of the article in quotation marks with the period inside the quotation marks. The title of the periodical, italicized, comma, day, month, year, comma, and the pages, period. The day, month, year is one of the mistakes I see the most frequently with my students because they do it, 7 with a slash, 7/19. Or they'll do the month, comma, day, and the year. Do not do those things. If you have July 7th, 2019, you do 07 July 2019. It's as if we're in Europe. In Europe, they always go day, month, year as their order because it makes the most sense, the smallest amount of time to the biggest amount of time. And this way, you don't need any commas because the numbers are separated. Since the day and the year aren't together here, that's why we need the comma to avoid confusion. Since they're separated here, you do not need the comma. Okay? And you can see examples right here. Then there's more practice. It's an article about the kite runner. And you can see this is the title. Since The Kite Runner is a published book, it should actually be italicized right there. PMLA is the organization. This is the author. You have the volume number, the year, the pages, who published it, and the stable URL where you can always find it. Okay, and how long it actually is. Now, when you include the URL in the Works Cited, you actually take out the https://. You no longer need that. You just start with the www, or if you don't have that, you start with this. Okay, that's another mistake I frequently see. And unfortunately, Google Slides doesn't let me do hanging indentations, but you can see that this is the way that you would cite it in the Works Cited. How to cite a website. And you guys will probably do this the most because you guys tend to do your research primarily online, which is fine. So, whoops, that was cool. Thanks. Again, all of this is the same. Title of the webpage, title of the organization italicized, comma, date published with you can see how it is here, and you can actually shorten the month, plus the URL without the HTTPS, comma, with the date that you accessed it. Okay, so this needs the date accessed as well. So it's not too hard. If you need help finding this information, let me know. Sometimes websites don't include the date published, so you just leave it out. Okay, but there should always be an organization. And it should never be a Google URL because that's just the address for your search, not for the actual site. You actually have to click on one of the search options to get the URL. That's another mistake I frequently see. Okay. So if I were going to cite something from Wikipedia, which you shouldn't usually cite from Wikipedia. It gives you good background knowledge, and you can scroll to the bottom of a Wikipedia page to see what other sources they used, and those are the sources you should use. You should go to the original source or the secondary source instead of a tertiary, which is another word of saying third source. Okay. So you can see the way that you cite this information is the Kite Runner. Now the Kite Runner should be italicized because it's the title of a book, and that's what this Wikipedia page is referring to. So in this case, you do have an italicized book with quotes around it. Notice the period is inside. Wikipedia is italicized because that's the organization, comma, the year it was published. Notice that with the URL, I don't have a www, I don't have the HTTPS, and then comma, 22 December 2016. So the rest of this presentation is just practice with the answers. Okay, so we don't need to go over that. You can check the Google slide and do these on your own for practice if you want, or just trust that you will figure it out. Okay, so again, I can't call on you guys randomly right now because this is a flipped classroom, but all MLA Works Cited is a way to give credit where it's due, to avoid plagiarism, and to help people find your sources if they want to in turn use them for research. Now, you guys are in high school, so you're probably not going to be publishing your essays, so you don't need your reader to know how to find your sources to research them yourselves. However, when you go to college or when you go to a career and you have a presentation, the people you work with or your college professors will want to know where you found the information, okay? And that way you can partake in the larger conversation about your topic. So that's all Works Cited is a specific format. There are other formats. There's Chicago and there's APA. They're the exact same thing, but they just format your essay slightly differently, and they format how you do a Works Cited slightly differently. So just think of it as a set of directions that you need to follow. I'm not going to make you memorize it because never in my life, after having 2 master's degrees, have I ever needed to know how to cite something from memory on the spot. Okay, so I've had professors ask me a few questions informally, but I've never been tested on it. So it's not a real world skill that you need. I do recommend knowing generally what goes first and second because then you can cite things faster. But all it is how to follow directions. If you have any questions or concerns, please email me or set up an appointment.